Hello and welcome to creatingforgrace.com. Today we're going to make this Life is Beautiful card. It's a bouquet of flowers, and the basic things that I used to create it were the new Eastern Beauty bundle using the Eastern Medallion framelits. So you can see we did the Life is Beautiful. It's actually meant to curve around some of these lovely circle framelits, but I actually straightened it out and stamped it in a straight line. So that's what's nice about the photopolymer, is you can do things like that. The framelit that I used is this one, and I've actually pre-cut the flowers. So this cuts the outside, and then this one actually cuts the frames on the inside, so you can see that you get some depth there. You can lift up the petals. The next thing I used is this Daffodil Delight new ribbon. It's from the new 2017-2018 Stampin' Up! Catalog, and super cute. And I also used the 1/2" circle punch to cut out these circles in the Daffodil Delight cardstock. And then basic tool, I used just a regular standard office hole punch from the scrap of paper that I had left over. And I just centered each one of these little star looking things into the center of the hole punch, and those became the centers of my flowers. So try and use stuff you have around the house. It's actually makes stuff a lot more versatile, and you can come up with some pretty cool stuff. I pre-did a lot of the things. This is actually stems from the Jar of Love framelit stamp set. And so I cut 4 of those in Old Olive. I pre-stamped the Life is Beautiful sentiment. We're going to flag those ends. I have the length of ribbon for the bow. And I'm just going to show you how we did this. We used the Tombow Mono Liquid Glue. And just put a dab in the center. I'm going to pick up my Daffodil Delight and put that right in the center. Anything that's small, I love this mono liquid adhesive. It'll save you money for a lot of things in the long run rather than the Tombow tape runner. And when you're not using something like ultra fine that you would need like the fine tip glue for, this is really economical. So for something like this on a bigger one, you can use the mono liquid glue. I actually prefer to use the snail and just run it around the edges. And I cut this, I used the thick white cardstock, and I cut it at 4 1/4 by 11, and I scored it at 5 1/2, and then used the bone folder to give it a nice crisp edge. And I cut this exactly the same, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. It's a typical A2 card size, and I wanted to cover the entire front, just like that. And if you find a way to kind of lay out your flowers, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the top one, so I kind of have an idea of where everything's going to lay out. I was playing with some flower patterns on the back there, so excuse my extra floral arrangement. So, and like I said, you can pop these up, which makes it really nice to kind of slide pieces underneath and on top of. Again, adding a bit of adhesive to the back, and I am going to slip this right underneath here and lift up one of these petals. We want this to look like it is bunched up together. So you want to give some depth to your flowers and have some above, some below. Again, a little dab of glue. And what's nice about this mono adhesive also is you're going to get it kind of where you want it to end up, but it also allows you to move it around a little bit before you actually end up setting it in place. Once you press it down, then it sticks really well, but it gives you a little bit of freedom to play with your placement. And because I'm not going all the way around the edges of the flowers, we'll be able to slip the stems underneath at the very end. I'm going to lift this part up here. Just like that. Then we have our flower stems. We want to have 2 going one direction and 2 going another direction, like that, so that you can tie your bow on. So we're going to quickly run some little dabs of glue. And we're going to do that for each of those. So why don't I lay these out? And one more. Flip this over, add a little bit, just like that. So like I said, you want to have your stems kind of coming together so that you can add your bow right on top. And like I said, that allows for some movement as well. So this is the easiest way I found to tie a bow, and I start with a shorter piece right in front, your longer piece trailing behind, and I hold it just like this. I loop it over and around, and then you're going to end up with a little tab. You're just going to punch that through, and then it's a matter of pulling your ends and just playing with your bow. And it really is just that easy. So I have one of our glue dots, which I actually love to use to attach bows. I'm going to add that right to the back there. And add the bow right on top. And then I actually keep a separate pair of scissors as a ribbon snip because it keeps a much sharper edge, and I keep my paper snips just for paper. So like I said, I've pre-stamped the Life is Beautiful, and these are actually the Stampin' Up! Paper snips, which I love. So if you go right in the center of a strip of paper, and then you cut from the end inside, and also again from the end inside, it gives you a nice flagged edge. And so if we add some adhesive to that, and I'm going to center that right on this piece of Daffodil Delight, just so that there's a tiny bit of border around, just enough to offset it a bit. Then I'm going to take those paper snips again, and I'm going to cut straight down the center, and I'm going to cut the edges from the corner in and from the corner in, and that gives us a pretty good flagged edge. We want to have it just about here, and I'm going to cut that straight off. And we want to make sure our adhesive went to the edge. So I'm going to add a little bit more because we don't want that popping up. I like to bring the center up, curve this and this up to give that some movement. And then I'll take one of our dimensionals, and I have some that I've pre-cut in half, and it's really cool because Stampin' Up! Actually just came out with some smaller dimensionals that we'll be able to do this with. And then you won't have to worry. But what's really nice is I add a little bit of adhesive to each place. So I've got a dimensional in the center and a little adhesive on each end. And then I'm going to go right to the edge of my paper And I like that because that gives some motion. And if I just use my fingers, or even a bone folder is what I use most of the time, just to flag up those ends. And then that is our finished card, and it's going to stand just like this. I'm not sure how well that shows up on the camera, but it's a portrait card. And the last thing I do, I always tell people, make sure to make your envelopes pretty. So I always try to do something in a coordinating color. In this case, the two colors that we used were Dapper Denim and the Daffodil Delight. And so I'm going to do something on the envelope using the same flower that we use. I'm going to do this in Dapper Denim. And I'm going to do it at a bit of an angle. So just like that. And then I took another pattern in the Daffodil Delight. And I'm actually just going to do a bit in the center of each petal. And it's enough just to give it some color and some interest. Get those out of the way. So there's your envelope. Here's your card. And that's it. Super quick and easy. Like I said, all I did was pre-did the flowers. Everything else was pretty much circle punches. It's very straightforward. All the dimensions and instructions will be on my blog. It's creatingforgrace.com. And thanks, and have an amazing day.